Okay, moving right along then. Again, looking at the agenda or the kind of draft guides. We then, on that same day after breakfast, we come back to Columbia, the workshop convenes and gets to work. And this is again, as I said, kind of just a short little description of what happens every day. It doesn't mean that this is the only thing. What would be, it's really just more as kind of to reassure the workshop participants that there'll be work, the kind of work, and then we'll give Ali and Tim the freedom to, and the workshop participants, the freedom to respond and interact with one another. The next kind of point that we all really need to convene on and take a look at is the potluck public launch, our Stone Soup event. So I just wanted to kind of go over that with everybody. Tara and I are in conversation along with Lisa about the logistics of which pots go where and who's cutting up what and all of this kind of stuff. But basically what we're looking at, and as Tim and I were talking about yesterday, is having really this be a very multifunctional event. So that, yes, soup is going to be shared, but it's also going to be so much about sharing and investing in each other. And it's going to have kind of a couple different stations at play. So everything from the stations of the individual tables covered with craft paper and crayons and soliciting responses and engagements there, to having kind of a bank of computers set up for either tweeting or blogging or doing interviews, again, to the questions, so that you'll have a variety of places to collect up people's voices as, again, Tim and Ali start the conversation off. So Tim, did you want to say anything else about some of the things that we talked about yesterday in terms of how we want to, in one way, share Motiroti's practice, but then also bring everybody that we can into this moment?
I mean, I haven't got a huge amount to add to what you've just said, Amy.
Okay.
Partly because I think I don't want us to. I want us to kind of stay relatively time efficient in this conversation.
Yes.
I guess what we're imagining that the Motiroti presentation is going to be maybe 45 minutes plus 15 minutes Q&A, and obviously people are welcome to then approach Ali and I after that point for follow-ups individually. But we don't want it to kind of, though obviously it's quite important content in terms of that overall week and the wider public ask, we don't want it to, the event to be dominant content within that. We wanted to use it as kind of an inspirational reference point, and then again invite people to to eat together and find ways to further people's responses to this question. We were talking about using the natural architecture of the space and the tables and chairs that are available and the craft paper and so on to get more content out of people. And I guess for us it's the kind of snapshot moment where we can kind of amplify the questions and the concerns of the project have been around and reach a much bigger public. But I didn't have much more to add beyond that to what you'd already said, Amy, unless people had particular questions.
Yeah. Any questions about this event, and how can we make sure that it's not just Columbia only? I guess is what I'm trying to make sure. What else can we do to get the word out and invite our communities to converge here?
In the invitation that we send out to the new IC public, we can put another, because we already done it before.
Okay.
Don't forget also type of thing.
Okay.
And then if we're doing the press release, I can target some of the community-based newspapers.
Okay, great.
To see if, maybe that would, not that all the community, it'll work out that way.
Right.
But at least I can send it out to them.
Okay, great.
That would be, I'm sure you probably have already a community-based.
We have a community newspaper, The Extra, that has done 2 articles about us. I can try to contact the person and maybe talk about it.
Okay.
And maybe someone from Colombia, I don't know if someone is available to talk to them.
Okay, absolutely, yes, we would make
And also
someone
put
available.
it on our contact list, send it out to, because we have different organizations that are in our contact list.
Okay, thank you.
Facebook, all of that.
Okay, send
Another idea would be, just because we're in the community soup collective that's happening, there's sort of a group between Detroit, and then there's there's a bar called The Hideout that also does a weekly soup series as well, that is usually made up of musicians and artists and various people that we've sort of done a lot of exchanges of lists. We could also extend the list to them as another soup event happening in the city.
Thank you.
Because I think that might be a completely different audience that brings a sort of theater music bent to it. That would be nice.
Very nice, thank you.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so to do this, I just need to kind of keep up with the same ones. I have this finalized and I have the media thing. I just send it to you guys and you'll get it out. Sweet, that's perfect.
The other thing I was thinking is, on a logistical note, with everyone bringing a vegetable to add to Stone Soup, one thing that we do at our Rethinking Soup thing is try to collect a list of all the ingredients. So maybe as people arrive, sort of have someone documenting like one carrot and where is it from, to sort of like track a little bit of the mileage or how far, or internationally, like do the ingredients sort of come to the table, just to have maybe reference that in other events. But it really is a nice list to sort of reference. I don't know, but
Well, maybe we could have a greeter, so we could have like a greeting station. Welcome, oh, thank you. And then also to make sure that at that station, we greet everyone and thank them for just coming, And so if someone doesn't bring soup or bring a vegetable or, brings a comb or just brings themselves, that too is like welcomed and, kind of documented, So Sue from Pittsburgh, cucumber from Transylvania, So again,
Definitely.
yeah, and I think that might even be interesting. Tim and I were talking about utilizing the screens. So we're in the Conway Center, which has a really nice street visibility, and there are 3 very large screens, and we were talking about utilizing an immediate almost tweeting of some of these words that then brings people that you see your presence is there on the screen. So kind of utilizing this floating word format, we could have that immediately getting up on the screen. So this could be something that's live. I type it in, carrot from, Jewel is now here. But I like that it makes you laugh, because I think that kind of humor and just to see this discourse immediately starting is really nice. It's a great idea, Tara.
Yeah, public art.
Yeah, and you might get a whole lot of potatoes, that are carrots, so maybe if everything cannot be put in the soup, because who knows how much, maybe like have little paper bags to like soup starters that people can take at the end. Okay, you want to start your own soup at home? Here's a in a bag, a potato, a carrot. Because you might have a lot of potatoes and carrots.
And you might realize that Potato's family, they were hanging out next door to each other in Jewel, and then 2 individuals picked them up, separate them, and then re-brought them together.
So it goes back to the community. What leftovers go back to the community as a soup starter kind of bag.
That was good.
That's a good idea. Another thing, just logistically with the soup, is we talked about sort of a community bread table, and there's a bakery that we use that makes, their oven is about 6 to 7 feet wide. So that meaning we've made challah braids that are enormous, something that's a shared bread to sort of not slice but pull apart as a group. And so that was our thinking about the bread, and I just wanted to run it by you because I know there are religious connotations to having challah in particular, but we could do any sort of version. But I just wanted to make sure that was it becomes a really beautiful centerpiece, but I don't know if that's the right track to take.
Well, is there, you come up against these questions, don't you?
I know, they're odd, but sorry.
We were trying to work out recently in Singapore whether, who would be put off by a description of non-halal food and so on, and what was the most inclusive language we could use. I mean, in the end, I suppose it's whether anybody would respond to that in ways that make them feel less included in the event, or that the event had been kind of somehow co-opted or something like that. And my knowledge of different bread varieties isn't strong enough to be able to You know, I mean, it's a form of Jewish bread, right?
Right.
But,
Mhm.
you
Yes.
know, where I live in London, which is the kind of Turkish centre of London, people eat it all the time with no connection to the Jewish faith. So, I
Mhm.
mean, I think it's a pretty accessible.
Okay. I just
Yeah.
wanted to run it by you, just in case.
No, thank
I mean,
you.
it sounds like great bread. You know, I would be
It's
disappointed
gorgeous,
if we
it's
weren't
gorgeous,
talking
but I
about
just
bread
didn't
at
know
this
what.
event, really. But I think it's a useful question.
Okay.
I'm just not sure we're best placed to be able to answer it.
But
I
my,
think we should go for it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I
think-
just didn't know because, you know, it can be a place to sort of, we could also put it as sort of like a world bread thing and like try to incorporate as many different varieties and instead of just focusing on one. It could also take that turn as well. So
yeah.
open for whatever. But I love the idea of sharing and sort of the one piece of something
break
is
off.
beautiful.
Yes, me too.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
So
I think we should just stick with that. I like, again, the plurality, of course, but I also think that challah bread is so digestible. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone sees like a dark pumpernickel rye, yes, I might like that, but someone else might not like that. What this
Right.
other is, you know, it's like white bread. It's soft. It's a dinner roll. You eat it, and it's not.
it's delicious.
It's not going to be, I think, offensive to
Okay.
anyone. You know, I
Okay.
think maybe I would feel different if it was like high holidays. You know, but you know, I think it's okay.
Mhm. And if it is offensive, it might create, I mean, emotion should be created
Right.
by art.
Yeah.
And so if it is offensive, hopefully there's a space for them to be
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
telling you how
Right.
offended they were. And
Yeah.
that'd be a perfect
I
piece
know.
to capture.
Right, okay. That sounds good. All right, so moving on then in terms of dates, times, places, potluck. This is where we're going to assign. So on the Friday and then the following 4th, when I meet with the workshop participants, we will have a sign-up sheet. So we will have one half like bringing 10 dishes on one night, and then one half will be bringing 10 dishes the other night. So I'll actually have a list of who's going to be bringing, not what per se, but that, yes, I know,
A dish or
you know,
not.
Thursday night's my night to bring a dish. So
Mhm.
we'll definitely have that for sure. All I need to know for on Las Tablas, Maritza, is there anything that Colombia can provide for you, like everything from plates to, you know, cleaning supplies? What can we bring, you know, that would help out, facilitate the meal and everything? And you and I can have this conversation later, but know that we are being mindful of needing to provide some support there. Okay. Good. Other questions or things? Are we ready to kind of move on? We've got like the activity, I think, on Las Tablas in the cooker, so to speak, and the logistics. Friday is really the kind of question moment, because unfortunately Marlies had an emergency at Dorchester this morning and was unable to make the meeting, but I'm going to speak with her on the phone after our meeting and hopefully be able to kind of fill this in a little bit more and share that with you. But we are hoping, after Tim's and my conversation yesterday, to have more kind of community exploration around Dorchester project, or to utilize some of the collections at Dorchester. And again, remember, you know, they have vinyl, they have the books, and then they have those glass slides. So we'll see. We still need a little bit more negotiation and time to figure that out today, hopefully. But a meal will take place there. Again, smaller scale for sure, because really comfortably they can house around 35, 40 at the most, you know, in terms of, again, that kind of overall space and spilling into them. All right, you guys. I feel like we are
Today,
in a-
everything's gonna be figured out.
yeah, everything's all cool. We're done. All good. Just in terms of the other things that are on the menu, or agenda as it is here, we have a plan for the poster, an invite. When you looked over this, was there anything glaring, any corrections, ideas? The one thing I want to say is you'll notice we de-logoed it quite a bit. At one point, we had everybody's logo on it, and it just visually crashed. So we just went for Columbia and for Motiroti, and I hope that that's okay. Clearly, we have, you know, everybody's names on it, and it will be celebrated by all means as an acknowledged acknowledged in all of our announcements, so I hope that that's okay with everyone.
So we're setting up a project blog, which is on a Posterous site. Posterous, for those who don't know, is just like a form of blogging software that's very quick and easy to use, and particularly to kind of disseminate content across different online social networks, Facebook, Twitter, etc. We're just in the process of setting that up, and I'm drafting quite a few posts that are just things that are occurring to us at the very beginning of the project that we just like to put out there and get some response back. We're imagining that the students are going to follow it relatively quickly, those who have online access, and also that the students who are working with Anne-Marie doing the press and PR stuff are probably going to want to work with it quite actively, trying to find ways to take some of its content and use it in their own studies and propagating it across the web. I've set it up so that one individual from each of the partner organisation has kind of authoring rights, so that they, in their role as themselves, rather than necessarily themselves in their job role, could write anything that it was occurring to them during the project's process and post it directly onto the blog under their own name. And so the idea is it's not a kind of authoritative commentary coming from Motiroti, but it's a space where lots of voices can speak and can begin to share and trade ideas, share them publicly on the web about what the dynamics of the projects are and what connections and thoughts people are having. What I guess is quite useful to float as a question at this point is just what process people think we should use for inviting people to become authors onto the website, because it's very easy for me to sit here and click buttons and let as many people become authors onto the site as possible. Whether we want the students, the 22 plus students who are involved in the project, to become authors directly onto the blog. Ali and I don't object to that. Equally, people might want to write stuff about the potluck on their own blogs and link it to the project blog. So it's kind of up for grabs, and we're not assuming it's all going to be elegant and symmetrical by any means. But I guess nobody's going to want to post anything until there's enough content on the blog space for people to feel they're contributing to a live conversation. So the first step for us is to begin to just post up enough content to make the blog look a bit lively.
Mm-hmm.
Each of those posts will then go through the Potluck's Twitter account, which is @PL Chicago, and so hopefully the students are going to follow those as well and begin to talk back to those kind of things. Once we've got enough critical mass of content, what do people think should be our approach to multi-authorship? Should we let all the students in? Should we let anybody who wants in? Should we let designated representatives, if that's what we want to call them, from the partner organisations contribute to the blog? That's an open question.
Students should be let in, would be my suggestion, just because if they're spending so much time thinking about it, there should be some space where they get to reflect also about what they're thinking. And it's like, if you're going to dedicate all this time, you should have some sort of space where they get credit for thinking about this. So that would be, I mean, I don't know, I don't think it would actually make sense to have anybody have open space for it, or depending on how popular and vibrant it gets, that we might have to then narrow down and we don't know if that's okay, or but I think the students will have enough time to reflect on it, that even if they want to say something that's offensive, they would have thought about,
But when you say students, do you mean
the
participants
participants,
or
the 22, the
workshop?
core.
Right, right, okay. But others? Because I guess what I'm afraid of is that because that 22 is predominantly Columbia, I'm looking to have a diversity of voices represented in it too, especially from our community partners.
The second layer could be folks who come to each one of our events, and they can reflect on the event itself.
Okay.
So the Hull House folks, and we can put somewhere where if you're interested in writing a reflection afterwards, or email it to us and we will put your name on it.
Or
upload
we
it.
just open it up, at the breakfast, starting it off with, we have the same screen ability to sort of do at the Stone Soup,
Mhm.
but starting the blog is like a continuous thing that's open at each event almost to contribute.
Mhm.
I don't know, I think we may not be I don't know if we should sort of, try to contain this. Like, I think if it's inviting,
Mhm.
maybe have someone sort of sitting next to that computer, and if people ask to contribute, maybe we don't sign each person in, but there's one person like typing
Right.
for in lieu,
Mhm.
for that
Mhm.
representation, or, I don't know.
Well, one of the things that occurs to me is that moment of frustration that you spoke of earlier. Do you know that you went to an event, you had an idea, you just didn't feel comfortable expressing it, or maybe you just didn't get a turn to?
Mhm.
So to me, the blog could be that
The
space.
second
Mhm.
space.
And also just to, as you said, be reflective. Like, okay, I went to this thing, and I came home, and now I've been thinking about it, and
Mhm.
this is what I have to say now.
Mhm.
So to me, my question is, how can we get that person? How do we even know of them? How can we make this accessible?
And the other thing too, we just had this experience with an event. We posted several pictures from our Disgusting Bug event with Rethinking Soup, and we actually had an alternate community that has nothing to do with our event respond to it in very beautiful ways that we actually brought back into the conversation during, the event. So it was interesting to sort of like almost invite the conversation to non-participants as well. The
Mhm.
blogging world sort of grabs onto these things
Right.
and post their opinions as
Yeah, for
outsiders.
sure, and I think there's something about how if we do this right, then it's a means to get some of the kind of issues and trends that people are talking about within the project kind of visible on radars that we wouldn't just physically have the capacity to reach in the week itself. So that potentially when we come back in February, there might be some interesting kind of interests that are joining the project, really, because they hopefully picked up on the online momentum. I think you guys are completely right, but I suppose I'd also say that if people want to reflect on an event as part of the potluck or some of the processes that have gone on within it in their own blog spaces that they might have spent a long time nurturing, we shouldn't be trying to work in a way that discourages that. And B, we would find it anyway, because we could set up an internet search for any reference to Potluck Chicago, scurry over to somebody else's blog, get them involved in the conversation there, and leave a link that it points anybody else who visits that space to come back to the main project blog. So the question really becomes, for any kind of web platforms that we're creating, what is the unique value of them for furthering the aims of the project and the students' learning, I guess. I like this idea of live tweeting the conversations themselves, and one of the things that we can get Anne-Marie students to do is perhaps to live blog the potlucks themselves. Any that turn up, we can give them login credentials into the potluck Twitter account, and we can have 4 or 5 students at once sending short form comments and a web link, so that would amplify the conversations beyond that individual room and bring that great sense of liveness to the project. I guess it's about, for people from Hull House, for people from Thomas, for people from Dorchester, if we think about their comments and reflections alongside each other on the same web platform, how do we get the most useful record of events or a means for the students to get accredited for what they're doing?
That's a question.
Yeah,
To me?
you.
Mostly because he's talking about all the sites. That means no sites are going to speak of.
Right. Yeah, I'm just trying to think about what would be the
And
best.
the students blog already? Do they, do we know what kind of online activity they're currently involved in?
All, so diverse, Tim. Just from my own experience as an instructor here, I know a lot of students keep a WordPress Many certainly still utilize Facebook, others do tweet. It seems to vary greatly. So it would be really hard for me to say, yes, this is the one platform. I think for us, really it's going to be creating a platform and inviting them into it and then letting them foster the links. I think that will happen pretty organically and automatically. I think that's kind of just, again, the mindset of that.
Then I guess the question I want to leave people with in terms of this area is just, any ideas that people have for what can be done on the site, which is different from what can be read or what can be enjoyed. Because I think we can create reams of posts about stuff that's kind of quite hazy generalities about the project. My experience is that people will then kind of read that stuff and go, okay, that's interesting. They'll dart off somewhere else online, and that'll be the end of it. But what can make the space very useful and important is if we can think of what it could be a site for action, how it could be a site for action of some sort. Could it be a place where people could collaborate on a new recipe book? Could it be a place where people could draw up a manifesto for social change for the city? Could we offer a set of challenges over the week that we're there that, there's something, a different thing for people to do on that site every day? And if so, what ideas might people have? Be they playful, be they, serious? It doesn't really matter, but I think it's about thinking about, the site as a place where things get done rather than consumed.
Right. Tim, I think you just hit on it. It sounds like you should have a changing menu. That I would definitely populate the site with pictures of the events so that people see themselves as participants or see someone like them. So I think having, again, that plurality of participants continually vested in it, as Tara was saying, when people see pictures of that immediately generates some response. And then I think that you can have, an action of the day or a question of the day, and that you are continually kind of asking for different responses. I think that sounds like a really good way to get to make it a dynamic site.
This is, you may completely object to this idea, but I just find that in every single meeting or event, as much as we discourage turn your phones off, everyone is on their phone, and most people are signed on to Twitter, but having that live feed going to almost encourage, if you have a response while we're talking in these meetings, to just like in 90 characters, just generate it. So it is actually being a part of the conversation, but maybe on a silent level. At the same time, broadcasting that in each, I know in the Hull House breakfast, it might be a nice way to sort of silently put thoughts on the board that we can respond to as a group without having to call out, and just make people sort of uncomfortable. But it might be a really nice sort of undertow happening at the same time with tweeting, at least with just tweeting. So.
Yeah, we've got no objections to that at all.
Well, let's kind of mull this over a little bit and shift back to analog. Okay, so yeah, it's really great. Everybody's, hyped up LinkedIn. What are we going to do for the people who don't want to communicate this way? How can we bring their voices into it as well?
If you get free food and you're not communicating.
Well, I think the craft paper is one really brilliant way. It's definitely that itself works. Marlise and I talked about chalkboards. So at Hull or at Dorchester, for example, they have a chalkboard, and they talked about putting one of the questions up and leaving it, for a day, taking a picture of it as it generated some response, and then putting up another question and doing it that way.
We could do Post-its.
Yeah,
Maybe
Post-it
that's
boards for
easy.
sure, definitely. And one of the things that Motiroti asked for at some point in the residency is access to bulletin boards on campus. And when they said that to me, I kind of laughed because I don't know if you noticed, but really practically every surface at Columbia can be termed a bulletin board. Especially we have them designated by the elevator. So we have such a ubiquitous presence of that. We could really use that for sure as
Everywhere.
a means of, performance or whatever we want to do with it. Are there other things that come to mind? No? How about for you, Maritza?
I think some of my parents, I might have to, the ones that don't log on Facebook or Twitter much, I just have to have conversations with them, have them, maybe the
Talk to
family,
people?
maybe
Crazy.
the families can create some kind of a storybook or some kind of
Yeah.
family project about it as a family.
Mhm.
Because like right now we're collecting leaves, so we're talking about leaves with the students. So maybe after this we can create a little project ongoing where they can actually work together as a family.
Yeah.
And then from there, because I do have some parents that don't do
Right.
any media.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. Okay. All right, you guys, the last point, Hull House. Did you guys want to talk about empathy and evaluation at this point or not quite yet?
We could talk about who's going to talk about it,
Okay.
which would be, so Lisa and Heather have met quite a few times already, and they've kind of gotten hold of other projects that are doing similar empathy sort of work and asking the right questions and how and why. And Lisa probably would be the best person to articulate it, both because she's been talking to people about it and just looking at their faces and kind of trying to figure out if that makes sense or not, and studying it almost indirectly to create a list of how to move forward.
Okay.
So I don't know if you would like to check in with her and then maybe say it to the whole group.
Okay, that sounds good. I can definitely do that. All right, Tim, we are at the end of the list. Is there any last FaceTime moments, any questions you have for the group before we let them go?
No, I'm good here.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for their time and
Yeah.
input. It's been really, really helpful and really enriched the conversation that I'm going to have with Ali as soon as he's out of his sick bed.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I think I'm finding it a lot easier to visualize some of these events, out of schedule and as reality. And, I think particularly some of the, real details about, the more we hear about what people want out of it, from their own positions, the more exciting it gets. So I'm glad that it's shaping up as a project that provides those kind of opportunities for people.
Great. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Tim.
I'll see you
Thank you.
on Friday.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks,
Bye,
Tim.
nice to
Bye,
see
Tim.
everybody.
Bye-bye. Take care.
See you on Friday.
Sounds great. Thank you, Tim. Bye-bye.
We have a small space, and on top of that, it's divided into two
Two
spaces.
small
We have the
spaces.
dance studio, and then we have like a little acting studio, small stage. So that might, they might have to take that into consideration
Right.
because not everybody might fit
Right.
into one space. So it might have to be two things going on, and then we merge
Right.
at the end into one. So I would like for them to know that
Okay.
we don't have a long space, it's just a space that is divided into two small spaces.
I'll let them know, Maritza, for sure.
Just a little concern about that.
Yeah, no. I think that's certainly smart.
Another logistical similar question is, so we don't actually have wireless mics or mics that are a lot, like available to go out too far from the podium.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure if you're documenting each one of these things. So if you're documenting the Hull House one, maybe we'll have to actually get like camera mic thing that's, from you all.
Michael will be with us the whole
Oh,
time.
okay, and then you can,
I'll be documenting, yeah.
the only problem is that, because there's 4 tables, and we're trying to document, and I guess you'll just walk and move and
Yes.
that kind of thing?
This was a unique situation because we are all just
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
around.
Just- okay.
But he will be flexible with his equipment to the needs of the individual spaces.
All right, and I don't know if that's possible to do RSS feed and whatnot, but we have the availability to maybe mic all 3. I don't know, I'm sorry that you're
So,
documenting
yeah.
while I'm asking all these questions.
It's not
But logistically speaking, should we be trying to figure out a way to mic 3 mics together? They're on 3 different tables? How important is documentation of each table to this project at this point?
It sounds to me like it's up the responsibility of the groups at the table to create their documentation. And what we're working on now is a list of the other technology that we might bring,
And how?
whether they be flip cams. All the students are being asked to bring their camera phones and a variety of other things. So hopefully we'll have our one documentarian who will go around, and this is the archive of the bigger event really, with little bits and pieces of the
Mhm.
close-up, but all the participants, what they contribute are going to be sort of the individual documentations. And hopefully between the blog and the website and all that other stuff, that's where that'll all start to come together.
Okay.
Okay.
Sound good?
So we should sort of work on just having one roving mic
I think so.
present.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that that'll
In
be-
addition to the podium where there can be, like, the computer is
Right.
linked out of, and, okay.
Right, right, and I think that we
And
should,
that's mic'd as well, so.
right, and that we would have at the podium, after Motiroti has done their introduction, maybe that would be the site where we invite people to come up and put in their blog or put in their tweet that then would be projected. Is that kind of,
Yep.
so we can think about that as like not a speaking place, but a workstation, you know.
And we could
as well.
also, I mean, since we have wireless in that room, we
Mhm.
could also set up a, just sort of a computer off to the side
Mhm.
Okay,
as
Sure.
well as like a,
Yep.
I think he's asked for the 2 stations, and
Right.
one station was
Right.
just to document individual,
Right.
which we can just separate a little bit by, maybe the pantry room or something.
okay.
And the other one would be then maybe a wireless computer, online tweeting / whatever else.
Mhm. We don't have anything,
right,
like-
right.
No, that's actually the beauty,
Yeah,
the beauty
Yeah,
of it is that
exactly.
we have very
We have a
different.
space, that's
Right,
it.
right, and likewise when we're at Dorchester, they do have Wi-Fi, but it's, it's an old house. So
Mhm.
it's gonna be a different feeling of space for sure in each place, and I think that's
Mhm.
also.
So beautiful though.
Yeah, what's really cool about it is that we're going to experience different spaces and places, and for the students, it's really gonna understand like, okay, adjust, and I think that's gotta be kind of just the theme, is like, okay, this is the environment now, make adjustments,
Mhm.
work it out,
That's gonna be good.
ad hoc.
And I hope that the last our end project would involve and make sure to give each of the different documents that come out the same amount of worth or space for it,
Yeah.
right?
I think
That the
that,
stories at Las Tablas have just as much emphasis on,
no,
yeah. And I'm sure
absolutely.
that that's already taken care of.
I think that one of the things that we will want to be really careful to do is, let's say, okay, so we have got these like 12 pieces of craft paper from the soup event, then to take those and to, use the camera to pan, and then to create,
Just
again,
figure out
a
a way.
video scan of that, so that's posted and we'll have an online presence. So it will move from having been an analog piece to something that is now digitally accessible, and that people, again, can see themselves at, oh, there's my squiggle, there's that grocery list I
Mhm,
wrote
mhm.
there,
That matters a lot.
So again, you can see that, and again, what I think we want to do at every event is somehow figure out how to invite people to participate and see that documentation. I also just wanted to say, logistically, we have worked on letting everybody know that this is being documented. So we will have signage at each event that indicates that, both in English and in Spanish.
Mhm.
And we will also have a sign-in sheet that asks people that they be okay with the idea of their images being included in something that could show up on YouTube or something to
Yeah.
that effect. And it's just going to be especially important on Las Tablas with the children. Okay, so it's one thing if we had this event happening at Columbia and it's people who are over 18. So that's, Maritza, for you, one thing, and I think Stephen and Maritza, I'll put you guys in closer contact so that you can see that translation that we hired someone to do for us, so that we make sure it seems good.
They're working on that now. We'll have it sometime next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Which we have a media release that we use for our website
Mhm.
and for when we've only had 2 articles by this newspaper that I mentioned before.
Mhm.
But it's very, very important to us that release is there, because some parents don't like the idea of their kids
Yes,
seeing,
right,
Yes.
totally.
anything. So
Yeah,
we're
I'm
very
like that
cautious.
too, all the time, because you see your kid being used in different ways, like, especially if, anyway.
I have another quick question.
Yeah, please.
Will they have a chance, I know they have a really heavy schedule, but will they have a chance prior to doing the workshops to probably do a little sightseeing of the areas where they're going to be?
Yeah, Maritza, let's talk about that, because that's one of the things I think is becoming really apparent to me that is needed. And so, are you thinking it would be good for Motiroti in the workshops to come over and to tour?
I mean, I have talked to a few of the people to kind of sell them the idea. They're very excited about these 2 British guys coming here. And I think that it becomes real
Mhm.
when you actually see them.
Right.
This restaurant that I have across from me, this Puerto Rican restaurant, they're coming here to eat, was the first thing that,
Ah.
I don't know.
Right, right.
But I think that'll be
Well,
nice to.
invite those people from that restaurant to come eat with us?
Well, actually, the
What?
person from the restaurant, I asked her to provide a little appetizer kind of thing.
Cool. That's
And
great.
she's excited.
Okay.
Whether she can leave the restaurant and come,
Right.
that'll be difficult.
Okay.
But I think it'll be nice to kind of, because I guess my area is the area that is more commercial, because all that is a commercial area. So it might be kind of interesting to, if they have the time ever to
Yeah.
kind of,
I think the other thing is to remember that inherently with this work that I've done before, there's a lot of impromptu, organic things about it. So St. Marie said the families are tired going home, but the kids still have some energy, so they go across the street to the restaurant. And, on their own time, they have a beer there, they hang out. So I think that there'll be a lot of energy and immediacy that'll happen too. And if we direct it, especially saying like, oh, you guys don't want to hang out, well, let's go across the street,
Mhm.
So I really like that idea, and I do think that Motiroti is starting to kind of understand a little bit more where we're traveling in the city, how far, because they get very concerned about these hours that I keep giving them, and they're like, why can't we just get in immediately? Well, you're going to need 45 minutes to get there on a
Chicago
bus.
is so.
Like I try to explain, like,
So
no, the
unique in that
CTA
way.
doesn't go that way, because we're going to have to take a bus to the train to another bus. And, I think for them to kind of, they're starting to understand, and I want them to see that transportation as part of the process as well, because that's likewise when you have a lot of different conversations and you see different things,
Yeah,
and you start to
definitely.
understand, I at least start to really understand work and how long it takes you to get to work, the commute. I'm always thinking about the commute, especially if you have childcare situations. I have to get my daughter by 6, so that means I have to leave here by 4. So I'm always doing that kind of math, and I think that the more you're aware of that, you really start to see then the inequities of our transportation system, and to really question them and take issue with them. Because again, the further you live out away from them versus the central brown line, red line corridor, the less leisure time you have. So, I'm getting home at 7 o'clock, I have to get the homework done, I have to get this done, and all of a sudden, what life do I have? Like, no, I didn't talk to my husband last night. Who's he? Instead. So I think you start to understand people's lives so much more by doing that. So that's my objective in this, is to understand where we live and how that dictates so many
In
parts of your
Chicago,
life.
especially with segregation and the way it was designed,
Yeah,
so there are no trains that go on the
Right.
southwest side of Chicago, or
Right. Right.
There were,
Yeah.
it was Grayson was designed in our transportation system.
Yeah, no, it's clearly inherent. I read a lot of things for editorial boards, and one of the books that I'm considering right now is very much talking about how infrastructure perpetuates that to every nth degree.
Yeah.
It's stunning, how we are really, in this moment of this racist structure completely dominating us,
Yeah, the expressway was built to
There you
keep
go.
certain,
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want us to put these on our
I
sites?
will. Okay, so this is the thing. I wanted to get it approved, and now that it seems good to go, I will send it to you as a PDF, and then we also can make physical copies of this and get them to you as well. The question is, how many would you like? And yeah, I guess that's
Maybe we
the
can
thing.
put them around. I just wasn't sure how to get them up.
Yeah. No.
I don't know if we can actually, maybe we can print them like this, probably, if you send us a PDF.
Yeah.
And these, please feel free to take all of them.
Yeah, I got them.
Yes,
Take as many as you want, we
I
have plenty
already
more.
have mine.
Yeah,
already.
please. That's great.
With us, we will need the copies, definitely.
Yeah, no, Maureen, I know we have
25.
the printer for that, so we will
Yeah.
definitely provide those for you and get them,
Yeah, oh yeah.
get them